Welcome back. This is Masterclass number 2 of our 2023 Accordion Masterclasses and Concerts. I'm Dr. William Schimmel, and I'm going to talk for a few minutes about the classical accordion in America. And yes, it's different, and it's different to deal with it. The classical accordion in America comes out of the giggers culture, which means that in my case, I'm classically trained, but the foundation of my classical training enables me to build upon anything that I wish. So I also am pop trained, I am rock trained, and I am an accordionist who covers pretty much every gamut of the New York and world scene. And I'm not so sure in America if we have a exclusive classical accordion. And I understand there are a handful in Europe on a classical music circuit, but I just explained now how we're different. In a sense, in America, I regard myself here as a missionary as well as a mercenary. And the missionary means that I'm on the same mission as any accordionist, whether it's classical, jazz, or whatever. But again, mercenary is that I'm in business to be paid for my services. I am a bona fide freelancer. And there might be a difference in that between this country and some other countries, although in essence, I'm sure in some levels it will be changing. And you can read a small article I wrote about this on my website called What Constitutes a Classical Accordion in America. Welcome back. And Paul Stein has been with us again for 20 years. Actually, sorry, I don't think he missed a year, 23 years. And he's covered a wide area of different styles. He loves and is quite an expert in Yiddish and klezmer varieties. And he also is a wonderful public service advocate. And I remember many times where during the holidays, I would turn on the news and they would show a bunch of kids getting gifts who needed to get gifts at this particular place. And sure enough, someone would be playing the accordion for them, and it would be Paul Stein. And I remember Hurricane Sandy, who went there to play for the people just to give them a little bit of pleasure. It was Paul Stein. And so we're very, very proud that he's with us for all these years. He also has the largest collection of accordion tchotchkes in the world. And he's going to tell you about them in a real way and also a conceptual way. This is a bit of a conceptual piece where we will see some of them, and in some cases we will be told about them, and then we have to kind of imagine them. And you'll see what I mean. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Paul Stein.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Stein. Those of you who know me, and I'm sure I know many of you, know that at Bill's seminars every year, which I've been at since the beginning, that I try to do something a little out of the ordinary. And my subject this year is definitely not a typical subject for an accordion workshop, seminar, convention. I hope you enjoy it. Many years ago, I was married to a woman who did not appreciate the accordion nearly as much as I do. But she appreciated me, and in order to find a joint activity and in order to support my accordionistic interests, she found an activity for us to do that she would enjoy and that I would enjoy, and that it was all about the accordion. And that activity was collecting accordion tchotchkes, we call them. They're as a Yiddish word for, I guess, a little thing, something like that. Collectibles. The accordion tchotchkes we've collected, and we haven't been married for a while, though we're still good friends. I have all of them, and unfortunately, most of them are in storage at the present time. And I'll tell you why. If you look in back of me right here, you'll see a bookshelf, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shelves full of accordion figurines and a few other related accordion items. There are about 100 on this bookshelf, and I have about 500, which was at one time, I believed it was the largest collection in the country, perhaps in the world. It probably isn't anymore because I stopped serious collecting about 30 years ago, something like that. I still, no, 20 years ago, but I still occasionally pick up an accordion figurine or tchotchke if I see it somewhere and it's not too expensive. One of the things that my accordion tchotchke collection proves is that accordions are found all over the world. People in all cultures, surprisingly, I would say more so than any other instrument, except perhaps percussion, if you lump all drums together. The drums are probably more pervasive in different cultures all throughout the world, but the accordion is, I believe, from what I've read and seen, is more pervasive than the guitar even, which you know how popular the guitar is in this country and elsewhere. But the accordion is popular in North America, in South America, in Eastern Europe, in Western Europe, in North Africa, East Africa, West Africa, also in South Africa, not quite as much, in Japan, in China. There's the harmonium in the subcontinent in Asia. It's what did I leave out? I'm trying to think which continent did I leave out? In South America, well, I said North America, South America, Central America, all over. And you'd be surprised to know that even in the least populous continent, and the one that does not have, shall we say, a permanent resident population, which is Antarctica, I found a picture online of an accordion. It was a button box, an accordion in Antarctica. And it was an expedition at the end of the 19th century that got iced in for, I think, for a few years. And there's pictures were taken on the ship itself, and there's a bunch of the expedition people there, and one of them is playing a button box accordion very clearly. So even in Antarctica, you can find accordions. And in my collection, I don't have a tchotchke from Antarctica, but from pretty much all else, everywhere around the world, I have something. And again, I only have 100 of my best ones here. There are 400 that are still in storage in the cellar of this house, along with, you would be surprised what else. Anyhow, so most of my collection is figurines, a person, but not necessarily a human being. You find in the collection that devils play the accordion, that angels play the accordion, that hippopotami play the accordion, that pigs play the accordion, mermaids play the accordion. I bet you didn't know that. Okay, mermaids play the accordion. And many holiday figures, elves and Santa Clauses, and play the accordion. Many Jewish musicians play the accordion. And let's see what else we have here. Dogs play the accordion. Dwarfs play the accordion. And even though most of the figurines that I have are not musical, I do have a number of music boxes. You remember Bashful, one of the dwarfs? And since he's bashful, I start him out facing the camera and he always turns around. I don't know how that works, but it does. So I'm going to put Bashful aside for the moment. And this suggests that Native Americans play the accordion. Quebecois play the accordion. Frogs play the accordion. British hounds play the accordion. Horses play the accordion. One of the things about collectibles, again, my collection is focused around the accordion, but there are cross-cutting collectibles, shall we say. In other words, there are particular brands of handicraft that are made by hand or manufactured around the world that some people collect, regardless of whether it's about accordions or whether it's about roosters or frogs or whatever. And those tend to be, some of them, extremely expensive. So I don't have many of those, but I spent a little money to get a few of those. For example, I have one Swarovski crystal, which is from Austria, I believe, Swarovski. I have a Hummel here, at least one Hummel. I believe this looks like a Hummel. And let's see what it says on the bottom. No, it's not a real Hummel. It looks like a Hummel, but Hummels look like that. I don't know. There's a Hummel here somewhere. And I have more than one Hummel. And also, I have Delft, which is this blue from the Netherlands. And if this isn't a real Delft, it's in the Delft style. You can see the blue there. And also, so again, some people collect Delft, some people collect Swarovski, and in their collections, they might have an accordion and they'll have a million other different kinds. Here's another Delft that, hard to read, but it's the Delft style. One of the most, and there are also accordion tchotchkes that are related to just one or two people. The one that comes to mind is Lawrence Welk. We all know who Lawrence Welk is and his association with the accordion. This is from Lawrence Welk Village, a collectible that has a bell in it. And I have other Lawrence Welk tchotchkes that aren't necessarily figurines that are related to Lawrence Welk. You can see in this collection here, there are piano accordion, an African American playing a piano accordion. There are button boxes of all different sorts, button boxes. And I don't have any harmoniums out here, but I may or may not have a harmonium. But there are bandoneons. We have, and it was very hard to find tchotchkes. This says Hugo de Ritus. I assume that's the artisan from Argentina, bandoneon. You can recognize that. And at one time, since I didn't have any three-dimensional Argentine, I collected this oil portrait in its place, and eventually I did get a bandoneon or two. Another kind of collectible that is cross-cutting is Murano glass from Italy, and unfortunately, I don't know who did this. I'd really like to know, but someone pushed this over and broke it. And I don't think this is an actual Murano glass from Italy, but it is a good facsimile of it. So you can see the breadth of this thing. One of the most unusual things that I found out was the Inuits from northern Canada, formerly people referred to them as Eskimos, I believe, that the accordion is there. And I saw online, I think it was on eBay, a soapstone sculpture. This is their main handicraft, carving soapstone. And I saw a beautiful soapstone sculpture of an accordionist, but it cost several $100s, and that was way out of my price range. So in place of that, I got this this sort of watercolor of an Inuit woman playing the accordion. Another variety of collectibles that cross-cuts with the accordion is they're called smokers. I think this is from Germany or Austria. I think Germany. And you put something in like it's, I don't know, looks like a cigar, something in the figurine's mouth and light it, and it smokes. And this one happens to smoke and play the accordion, but I don't want to endorse smoking, so he's not smoking here. And there's some popular, I'm sure you all know this guy, Weird Al Yankovic. I couldn't resist. My wife got me this Weird Al Yankovic statuette with interchangeable heads, in fact, and a microphone. And anyhow, I like Weird Al unapologetically. And there are various kinds of music boxes, things like that. Like this is sort of a Christmas. So I do have a few music boxes. And in terms of what the tchotchkes are made of, most of them are ceramic. This is, like a cast ceramic, hand painted, I'm certain. A number of them are carved wood. This is hand carved wood, I would say. Some of them are cast metal. This, I think I found this at a flea market around Lincoln Center. And it was made in New York, perhaps in Brooklyn. Cast metal. And some of them are formed metal, like bent, you can see bent metal. And some of them have cloth bodies. Oops, I guess this looks sort of like, there we go, you can see. I think it fell off, this accordion fell. Okay. And a few of them are functional. They're not just, you can see the accordionist there, but he happens to be holding looks like a shoe brush, I believe. He's holding in back of him. So they come in all shapes and varieties. But as you know, my name is Paul Stein. And the reason I mention that again is because the capstone of my collection the capstone is, I guess, accordion steins. And I have several, and those are the only things I spent, for some of them, over $100 for. A stein, a drinking tankard with a cover. And there are different styles of accordion steins. Here's one in bas relief, someone's playing the accordion on the stein in ceramic. And here's one where the accordionist is, it's probably pewter on top. And in the picture, is there an accordionist? There's an accordionist in the picture that's burnt into the body of it as well. And here's another style of accordion stein. Again, these are all meant to drink from. I have not had anything to drink from any of them. But you can see this guy. This is sort of a popular one. And so you see the accordion steins there. you know that I'm an accordion Stein, and I hope you've enjoyed this little tour around the world and around my accordion Tchotchke collection. And I hope that you will enjoy thinking about all the different places in the world that the accordion is played, all the different cultures, and all the different figurines that represent that.
Will Holzhauser, as you had heard before, he has studied with me for more than 20 years. And he's developed into a fantastic musician. And he has some really, really good information that he really feels that he wants to share with you at this particular point. And it's all about phrasing, on how to be flexible with the phrasing without losing certain inner beats and inner pulses. And so let's hear what Will has to say about it. And so, flexible phrasing by Will Holzhauser.
Hi everyone, my name is Will Holzhauser, and I'm going to talk to you today about flexible phrasing in steady tempo. This topic was suggested by Bill, and I think it's a great idea, and I think it has a lot to do with our instrument in particular, the way the right hand and the left hand relate to each other. Steady internal pulse is crucial in many kinds of music, both groove-based music, often descended from West African roots like jazz, rock, folk music, Latin music, but also in European classical music, where so many rhythms come out of dance forms. Steady internal pulse can help you with all different kinds of playing, whether it's literally in strict tempo or even if the time is rubato, having that strong sense of an internal pulse is crucial. Since rhythm in music comes out of dance, it relates to gravity. When your body moves, you feel that cycle of the gravitational pull. You can try this by doing a simple dance step around your house or just walking around your house. Up, down, your feet go up, your feet go down, your body rocks back and forth. That's the feeling of rhythm, that's where that comes from. It's not just intellectual, it's physical. It's not just your mind and your fingers, it's also your whole body. For example, in Alexander technique, training for actors and other people, they talk about breath as movement. That is, as you breathe in and out, that is a movement. So your body is constantly in motion. When you play, you can tap your foot or move your body, and that will help you feel this gravitational cycle, unless there's a specific reason not to. Of course, in some musical contexts, it can be distracting or can make extraneous noise to tap your foot or to move. So use your judgment. But what I want to emphasize today is that with that, once you have that steady pulse going, that is your grounding. And that, in the accordion, that often happens in the left hand. The left hand is our grounding harmonically in terms of playing the roots of the chords and the chords. It's also a grounding rhythmically. So once you have that grounding, then you can phrase in a variety of different ways with your right hand. You can sometimes play right in time with the steady tempo, or you can kind of float over the tempo, whatever the expression of the moment calls for. You can even use elements of rubato phrasing while you're playing steady time in the left hand, or while you're playing with a group in which some people are holding down steady time. Playing in a groove in a steady tempo should not mean that you feel locked into something mechanical. You should be able to relate to that groove, that pulse, in a variety of ways. So this also relates to the multi-dimensional aspects of the accordion as a miniature orchestra or a miniature band, the left hand as the band, the right hand as the soloist. The left hand keeps a steady pulse while the right hand can be a little freer sometimes. The left hand is chords, right hand is melody. The left hand is our grounding, the right hand floats above it. Maybe that's an oversimplification in some ways, but that's sort of those are some of our basic dualities, as Bill might say, that we work with in the accordion. So let me give you a couple examples of how this might work. One way to practice this kind of thing is to play a steady vamp. It might come from a tune, or it might just be a vamp that you do in terms of practicing. Here's one that comes from one of my pieces. It's sort of a Brazilian style piece. There's a solo, an improvised solo in the middle, and there's a vamp that goes like this. It's just two chords, F and E flat. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm playing here on the free bass. So there's a lot of ways you can play over this type of vamp rhythmically. You can, and here's a sort of systematic way to try it out. You can start by just playing quarter notes and half notes like that. Then you can go to eighth notes. Those are quarters. Eighth notes. Let's not worry about what the notes are right now, but I'm basically using an F Mixolydian scale, a major scale with a flat seventh. But don't worry about that. Thinking about the rhythms, so far we've done quarter notes and eighth notes, then you can go to triplets. And sixteenths. So you can practice those different layers of rhythm, and then you can practice floating with the right hand without playing a specific relation. And then you can kind of scribble over the top of it. Another way you can practice that is think about that gravitational thing. Think about a ball bouncing. It gets faster and faster and then slower and slower. So that's another exercise you can do. And you don't have to use a two-chord vamp. You can use any vamp, any repeating chord cycle you want in the left hand. But again, the left hand stays very steady. The right hand is a little freer. this with jazz, where on the accordion, often the left hand keeps a steady pulse and the right hand works in and out of the left hand. So again, a lot of jazz accordion books will write the left hand sort of in a very straight oompa rhythm. Or something like this. And of course that isn't always to be taken literally, but playing quarter notes can be very effective in jazz, as long as you do it musically and add a little variety to the mix. So how would that work with flexible phrasing? So what am I doing there? Sometimes I'm playing right with the beat. That was playing triplets, like right on the beat. Sometimes I'm playing a little behind the beat. It's a little tricky to do by yourself, but that's basically going back to the concept of the left hand being the rhythm section, the right hand being the soloist. Your left hand is acting like the bass in the piano or the bass in the guitar. Your right hand is acting like the saxophone or the singer. And in jazz, very often, the soloist or the singer will phrase a little bit behind the beat. And then another thing I'm doing is sometimes scribbling over the steady rhythm. And then you mix all those things together. So you have a lot of variety. Sometimes you hit the rhythm really clearly, really hard. Sometimes you scribble across it to give the ears a break, create some excitement. So those are a lot of different ways to do flexible phrasing in steady tempo. And of course, all this stuff applies when you're playing with a group as well. When you're playing solo, often your left hand is the steady pulse. In a band, that might be the rhythm section is the steady pulse, and the soloists or the chordal instruments are relating to the bass and drums. Your job as an accordionist is often to be in the rhythm section and to help hold down that steady rhythm. So in a band like that, you're constantly switching roles. For a while, it's your job to hold down the rhythm, and then it's your job as the soloist to kind of help stretch the feeling of the music by pulling the rhythm in different directions while the rhythm section holds it down, like I was just doing there in those examples. So, and of course this can happen in any kind of group. It doesn't have to have bass and drums. Sometimes in a duo, you'll switch roles back and forth. First one person holds down the time, the other person solos, then you switch. And you can really do this with any instruments. Please reach out if you have questions or if you want to discuss anything. And thanks again, Bill, for putting together this great weekend of masterclasses and concerts. It's always a pleasure to be part of it. Thank you.
Sari Callan has been with us for a number of years as a person playing for comments and criticism. Constructive, of course, that's all we do here. And she assembled a work based, I shouldn't say based, but it really is, Psalm 67 by Charles Ives. It's a choral piece, and she arranged it for multi-accordions. And a word about Charles Ives. He was one of our great American composers. As a youngster, he just loved going to parades, and especially if he heard a band go by and the next band coming in, and he heard the sounds that were the band leaving and another band coming, producing a kind of a dissonance. And that always stayed with him, and it inspired a lot of his compositions. And my own mentor, Elliot Carter, knew him as a youngster. And Carter family did business with the Ives family. Ives was in the insurance business. And so, nonetheless, let's listen to the Ives Psalm 67 and Sari's version. Jacques Di Benedetto has been with us in the past few years, and he's been playing for constructive criticism. And I played it for a few people on the seminar team, and we all came to the conclusion that you really are improving every single year. And the thing we were most impressed with is your tempo and your rhythms. They were extremely steady. Over the years, less so. And your rendition was really, really terrific. And we are very proud of you every year because you get better each year. So let's listen to Jack in the breaking of the bread. Back in the 1970s, I did a cabaret show for Ultraviolet, who was one of Andy Warhol's superstars. Ironically, I never met Andy Warhol. But in this particular piece, which we called Purgatory, there was a reggae. And to play a proper reggae, it's one thing, first of all, you emphasize the second and fourth beats. But if you're going to do a proper reggae, there's a little bit of a swing to it. Sort of like a ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba. That's implied underneath. So you have to go. And the piece we did, or the piece that I wrote for her, was called Purgatory. And we opened up the cabaret show with that. We're living in purgatory. It's a lavatory. We're living in purgatory. It's a lavatory. Purge, dirge, purge, dirge, purge, dirge, purge, dirge. We're living in purgatory. It's a laboratory. We're living in purgatory. Purge, dirge, purge, dirge, purge, dirge, purge, dirge, purge, dirge, purge, dirge. Gary Larson got it all wrong. You know, that cartoon, Welcome to Heaven, here's your harp. Welcome to Hell, here's your accordion. The accordion really is a purgatory instrument. It's kind of in between. It's the built-in ironic duality. It's hip and square, classy and ain't got no class, elegant, vulgar. It's never one without the other. So it sort of lies in that purgatory realm. An interesting story about Ultraviolet is one day I went over for rehearsal, and of course Andy Warhol was leaving, and the elevator was going down. That always seemed to happen. And she said, we now will go see Dali. And I really didn't quite know what she meant. And her apartment was right near the Guggenheim Museum. So all of a sudden, she takes me, and I believe someone else was there also, down to the Guggenheim. There was a closed exhibit of a painting by Salvador Dali. And sure enough, she simply goes in, and there he is. And she taps him on the shoulder, and he turns around, and he hugs her. Cameras, of course, flash around. And she introduces me to him, and he shakes my hand and looks at me and says, impression. He wanted to know my impression of the painting. And of course, I said, oh, I just love your work. I blubbered. And he looked at me and said, Dali in love with Dali. And afterwards, we went out for hamburgers and asparagus, which is what you apparently had to do after you have seen Salvador Dali. And another instance where I became an accordionist, I really feel, in the true sense. Every so-and-so, every now and then, let's put it that way, he would have a little gathering at Trader Vic's at the plaza. And Ultra said to me, "Why don't you stop by?" And so I did stop by. And I walked into the hotel and I said, "Mr. Dolly's table?" He said, "Yeah, go right in." And I walk in, and of course he's sitting. It looked like the Last Supper. He's sitting at the center of the table, and around him were groups of people, basically, who, in a sense, I would say that they were pretty much ahead of their time, and they would be, in a sense, rather mainstream today. Although back then they were not mainstream. And so I see Ultra there, and I said, "You know something, I'll wait for you outside." And I beckoned to her, and she said, "Okay." And sure enough, when it was finished, Salvador Dali led the procession, and everybody followed him out. And I realized, you know something? I really was enjoying the show, and I didn't necessarily want to be a minion in the line. And so Ultra saw that I was waiting, and she got out of line, and we got on the subway and went to John Vaccaro's, who was the founder of the Theater of the Ridiculous. We went to one of his parties and had a good time. And that was my experience with Salvador Dali. And when I was with Tom Waits, I just remembered when I arrived to do a recording, Keith Richards had just left. And I always seemed to miss the time when they were there. And perhaps that was meant to be, where in a sense I could spend my time doing what I needed to do. And so getting on to the next guest would be Rita Barnia, who was a protege of Gina Torr, who was the Dean of Accordion Composers. And we're going to listen to her play her mentor's piece called Agitato. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Rita Barnia.
But this piece is called Agitato, and I'm going to like this. Effort.
if a DJ gets sick and can't make the gig, and you're there or someone calls you to fill in for the DJ, I want you to say yes. Because here's what you can do. I'm going to take something and I'm going to show you how I can string pieces together, and even the most contrasting pieces together, and make a unified whole out of it. And I'm going to start with the famous theme of the Paganini variations. And I'll start it in a swing style, and then I'll move into various places. And some of the variations will be far-fetched, but nonetheless, there'll be a sense of continuity there. In some cases, I'm nailing the genre, as we talked before, and in some cases, I'm really busting it. So here we go. what holds it all together? Well, what holds it all together is a common tone. And if you're going to be your own DJ, you don't have to go through all these very, very, very extensive modulations. Find a common tone thread. For instance, the theme, if I found, let's say, an A, and then if I stopped on the G and went to the next variation, kind of a spaghetti western. Actually, no, this is a Tom Jones one. So it sort of mimics Tom Jones to a certain degree. And then we can hold the C over from there, then do the spaghetti western. Then eventually stop on the A, and then do the actual variation of Rachmaninoff, but in the style of Stephen Sondheim. And then we're back with the common tone A. Then we can do the sort of generic Baroque meets the Middle East, then ending with a kind of a Bollywood. And that can be held together by just a series of common tones. And as a matter of fact, Hector Berlioz wrote a 7-hour opera on common tones, using common tone modulations and Le Troyen. And so when someone asks you, can you DJ the next event, please say yes. Our last guest will be Dr. Thomas Masucci. Tom was at our very first seminar, and a number of them after that, but we're happy to have him back. And he's been studying with me, and he brought in some Vaughan Williams. He's a great admirer of Ralph Vaughan Williams. And I asked him, do you improvise? And of course he said yes. And I said, could you improvise on Vaughan Williams? And sure enough, he did. And I asked him if he would share that with us. And so this is Dr. Thomas Masucci doing an improvisation on Vaughan Williams. And this brings us to a close for our second masterclass. We'll break for a few minutes and we'll be back with the concert. Welcome back. This is our concert number 2 of the Accordion Seminars. And I'm William Schimmel, Dr. William Schimmel. And we're going to start with River Rune, a piece by myself, commissioned and performed by Boctopus. And it was sponsored by the Brooklyn Arts Council. And the interesting thing about Boctopus is that I remember a story. It's not even a story. I remember there was a week of Bach, and on WQXR, and they were talking about all the wonderful Baroque groups and early music groups that were going to take place that week, playing all over New York City. And they said the best groups, including an accordion quartet called Boctopus. And so none of the other groups were mentioned. And so as I say to people, and don't take it wrong, but as I say to people, especially young people today, is a good title helps in naming a band or a composition and so forth. And I even talk about that a little later when we get to Fromage Dangereux, another one. And so this is River Rune, and performed and commissioned by Boctopus. in history, sometimes things happen in pairs. Schoenberg and Stravinsky, Bach and Handel, Mozart and Haydn, Kurt Weill and Hans Eisler. And what about Piazzolla? Who's the other guy? Well, the other guy was Osvaldo Pugliese. And in many cases, he is the father of the modern tango. And he's very little known here, but of course, quite a hero in Argentina. And he got in trouble with Perón because of his communist leanings. But nonetheless, Perón made up to him, or tried to, and he was awarded the highest honor that you can get in Argentina, pretty much like their Nobel Prize. And when Perón gave him the award, he kissed Pugliese and said, "Thank you, Oswald Pugliese, for forgiving." Now, the backstory is that they locked Pugliese up in a boat and sunk the boat and rescued him just towards the end. And when you hear an Osvaldo Pugliese piece, you hear beautiful melodies and real sharp rhythms in tandem with one another. And if you go to a tango milonga, where the tango is danced, the lights will dim, and sometimes people will be almost standing still, but their legs will move around in these rhythms. And Osvaldo Pugliese actually outlived his successor, Astor Piazzolla, by 3 years. And one of his most famous tangos is La Jamba. And the piece sounds like the title, La Jamba. the great Argentine pianist Dr. Hugo Goldenzweig joins me in the next piece. And this work, Fromage Dangereux, is a classic tango. And I will tell you more about it in the next video, which features Dr. Hugo Goldenzweig on piano and myself on accordion. Ladies and gentlemen, Fromage Dangereux.
Way back in the old days, the 1980s, I was approached by a choreographer named Martha Clark to compose a 20-minute piece for a dance company that she had with a couple members of the Paris Ballet. And it was to be a 20-minute piece, and the title would be Fromage Dangereux, Dangerous Cheese. And it was going to get two performances. One performance at the Lenox Arts Center in Stockbridge, and then the other performance on a cruise ship to Turkey. Then after that, the group was going to disband and go their merry way, never to be seen again, or something like that. And so after it was all over, and I was also told that I could do whatever I wanted with the piece afterwards. And the piece had a tango in the middle. And so I took that piece and I sent the score to a person that I knew was putting out a tango CD. And I sent it to this person, and nothing happened. And about 8 years go by, and sure enough, I get a phone call from New Albion Records. And they said something to the effect of, we have this tango here, and we'd like to put out that record of these tangos. The tango performer had passed away, and we want to release it. And so they said, we love your tango. We'd like to put it on a CD. And I said, well, what do you love about it? And they said, well, we really love the title. And they said, by the way, we also like the piece. And so, word to the wise, especially young composers, or maybe not so young, if you want to get some notice, and it's very, very difficult today, perhaps a good title and a composition might help a bit. But be sure that it's a good piece as well. Okay, Fromage Dangereux.
Godfrey Nelson and Jake Holmes collaborated on a piece, Secret City. Godfrey Nelson has been a student of mine for many, many years, and he's produced many things, everything from Ninja Turtles, and everything from, I would say numerous commercials. He's done many film scores, and his collaborator Jake Holmes wrote a work a while back in the 60s called Dazed and Confused. And he happened to be opening up for Led Zeppelin, who ended up writing a piece called Dazed and Confused. And apparently something was settled in the past couple of years. And here is their collaboration, Secret City. And I take part in it, as a matter of fact. And my wife filmed me into this particular video. So, Godfrey Nelson, Jake Holmes, Secret City.
The secret city lies under frozen stars, deep in the pipework. In the heat of the warm rust, corrosion, and the drip of human waste. In the ghost stations overgrown with homeborn murals, and the restrooms reserved only for the most desperate call of nature. The secret city waits in the waiting room, digging into sympathy with cardboard cups, pushing shopping carts of unsanitary luggage, huddling in the safety of transient indifference, right feet moving silence, invisible, untouchable. The secret city holds station slumber parties that the ticketed teenagers avoid. They steal garbage, wear garbage, become garbage. They collect fares on the IRT with prepared statements, send doormen to cash machines, and envoys to strategic intersections. The secret city eats at church on Restaurant Row, lining up like theater goers on matinee day. They are enough of a metropolis now to sweep under their own newspapers. Yeah, their own newspapers. The secret city.
Dr. Denise Konchelik, her piece 11A, Pentatonic Ostinato, is just that. It uses a 5-note scale, and we'll talk more about that when we approach bluegrass and Asian culture. So this is Denise Konchelik's work, Pentatonic Ostinato. Now we have Hansi Wang performing Hell and Dunkel, written by Sofia Gobeledina in the celebration of her 90th birthday. Here she appears with her teacher or former teacher, probably now colleague, Geir Dragsvold, in Hell und Dunkel. I have a little story about Sofia Gobeledina. I had performed her work De Profundis many, many years ago in the 80s, and she visited me in my studio, and I played the work for her, and she had very few comments to make of it. But it looks to me, or it seemed to me, she had never seen a piano accordion before. She was used to the bayan, and she was amused. And so the next day, when I went to dress rehearsal at Alice Tully, before I played, as I was getting ready, I looked at her in the audience, and she went like this. And then went back to that serious face she always had. And I said, am I really seeing this? And I looked again, she went, and then went back to that really, really serious face. And everything worked out fine after that. She enjoyed the performance, and I had the honor of doing it a number of years later, and I did it with lights. And so here is Hell on Donko by Sofia Gubaidulina. I'll say it again, Sofia Gubaidulina. Jean Valonis told me a story that her father told her about this farmer's son whose job was to, shovel the shit. And so he managed one day to shovel it, and he shoveled it in a certain area where plants were growing, flowers were growing, and roses appeared. And it inspired Jean to perform the work, arrange the work, The Rose. And here is Jean Valonis in The Rose.
Do you know that some say love is a river that drowns the tender reed? Do you know some say love is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed? I say,
Dr. Robert Young McMahon will present 3 tombeaux. And first will be the introduction, telling you what he is going to do with these. And then he will play original works that he feels, if certain composers wrote for the accordion, this is what they may have sounded like. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Robert Young McMahon.
I have often wondered what kind of accordion pieces 3 major figures that I greatly admire in the 20th century and that were influences on me would have written had they been commissioned by Elsie Bennett and the American Accordionists Association. The composers I'm mentioning here are Bela Bartok, Anton Webern, and Igor Stravinsky. Now, 2 of them could not have been commissioned by the AAA because they were long dead before the committee was formed, namely Bartok and Webern, both of whom died tragically in 1945. But the third, Igor Stravinsky, was very much alive in the 1950s and 60s when the CCC, the Composers Commissioning Committee, was up and running full speed. But Stravinsky's secretary prevented Elsie Bennett from asking Stravinsky to write something for accordion, which is interesting because Stravinsky had thoroughly studied Hugo Hermann's special manual on writing for the accordion that came out in the 1930s, but he never wrote anything for or including accordion anyway. Too bad. But I decided myself to take on a little project in which I would write 3 short vignettes in honor of these 3 composers, and somewhat in their style. They steal the title of Ravel's famous work, Le Tombeau de Couperin. A tombeau means tomb, or like grave in French, but it also, in the 18th century, in the time of Couperin, meant great honoring of a famous and important figure. So that is the context in which it is going to be used here. So the titles of my 3 pieces, in the order you'll hear them, are Le Tombeau de Bartok, Le Tombeau Bela Bartok, and it, as the first piece, will imitate the style of his little piano pieces in the Mikrokosmos, and will have a certain amount of Romanian or Hungarian flavor to them. Very short piece. Second short piece will be again in memory of Webern, so that will be titled Le Tombeau de Webern, or Anton Webern. And it will be in his sparse, very pointillistic, staccato kind of highly disjunct atonal style that was so much an influence on composers after 1945, the year both he and Bartok tragically died. Well into the 50s and 60s, and one could argue the 70s. The era of atonality, electronic music, high level of experimentation. The third piece, again I will title the same way in the beginning, Le Tombeau, in this case, Le Tombeau de Igor Stravinsky. And this will have a few hints of the Rite of Spring and the Symphony of Psalms. They were fun to write, kind of fun to play. They're for free bass accordion. And they're very short. I hope you enjoy them.
Paul Stein is back with 3 klezmers. And the first one is Ayor noch mein Kassin. The second, Sadequer Quasidi. And the third one, Erster Vals. Paul Stein. And that marks the end of concert number 2. And join us tomorrow for masterclass number 3 and concert number 3. This is Dr. William Schimmel.
Klezmer Medley.
Thank you.